This is a Dell Optiplex 755, and they were about to throw this thing in the trash even though it works perfectly fine. I say bullshit to that. Let's fix it up and get it working again. So the main problem with this Dell, and a lot of Dells from this time, is that the power supply finally gave up the ghost. As they do. They're not the highest quality things in the world. But we can fix that. We're also going to throw in an SSD and a much better graphics card, as the HD 3450 that this thing comes with is not going to cut it. At least not for anything with 3D graphics. So, we got some work to do. Now, let's start talking about the upgrades that we're going to do to this thing. I've already taken out the old power supply and discarded it. Be sure that when you throw away old electronics, always go through the proper e-waste recycling protocols for your particular area. Don't just throw things in the trash. It's not safe for the environment. But I went ahead and got myself a brand new power supply, 450 watts. This came from a Dell workstation. It's an older unit, but it's still very high quality. I believe this is 80 plus platinum certified, either 80 plus platinum or 80 plus gold, something like that. And it came out of an old Dell workstation, so kind of like the 630i that I made a video on a while back. It's going to be kind of a similar story to that. So, this has all of the connectors that we need. So, it's obviously seen some better days, of course. It's older, but it's still good quality, and it's still going to provide us with all the power that we need. You can see some people used some like tape and glue and some string to tie up and cable manage the SATA power a little bit. Yeah, looks like she's seen some better days. Of course, you got your standard, ketchup and mustard cables from back in the day. But we got our 24 pin. We got our CPU pin. This was originally just a solid 8 block, but they cut it up into, or it was a solid 8, and they cut it up into 2 4 pins for the CPU, which we only need 4, so that actually works great for us. That's nice. And then we have, for a graphics card, we have 2 6-pin PCI Express power connectors for whatever graphics card we want. We're going to be using a very low-end graphics card for this because we don't need, the newest horsepower in the world. But in this PC, we have a Core 2 Quad Q6600 as well as 4 gigabytes of RAM. So I figured, why don't we try making this thing into a Linux gaming box? That should be cool, right? Obviously, some of these older, quad cores are going to show their age a little bit. One of the biggest problems is that this type of CPU does not support AVX, or Advanced Vector Extensions. So some games that require that are not going to be able to run. There are some hacky workarounds, but for all intents and purposes, they're just not going to run for us. So we're going to have to be a little bit more selective. But there's still many, many games that are free that we can play, and we don't need AVX for. So I'm going to be excited what this thing can do. And I just realized I've been kind of slow rolling you on the most exciting part, the graphics card. Ha ha ha! Here we are. Yes, the HD 5750. I didn't know when I would ever get to talk about this thing, but look at how cute this thing is. Remember back when GPUs were so small you could hold them with one hand? I miss those days. But we have 1 gigabyte of VRAM. This thing came out, I think it was 2009 or 2010, around the same time as the 5770, 5850. This was that same kind of generation, same architecture, and it was a couple years after this type of tower came out. So they're all going to be around within a couple years of each other. I think this was like 2006, 2007, something like that. When did the Q6600 come out? I don't know. But yeah, this, it should be fine. I think a lot of the games we're going to be playing on this system are probably like 2D games. So I'm thinking maybe like some Harvest Moon, or Stardew Valley, maybe some Shovel Knight, some 2D games, I think. Not too much 3D action going to be happening, but we're at least going to try. We're going to do what we can. That's what we do here. So, I'm going to get this installed and take out the original 3450. So, sit back, relax, and watch the upgrade process happen. This is going to be fun. I ran into a little bit of a problem. So on this power supply, if you'll notice where the power plug is supposed to come in, we have a little bit of a lip on the surface for the plug. Well, on the system that this originally came out of, that wouldn't have been a problem. But for our purposes, that's going to make things slightly more difficult. So what I'm going to have to do is essentially take this little chunk off so that we have enough clearance to put it into this case. So we have a slight problem. Number one, that little lip on the power supply is actually connected to the actual power connector. So basically, if I want to get it to fit, I'm essentially going to have to Dremel out part of the case up here. I gotta Dremel out that plastic and that metal so that it'll provide enough clearance for the power supply. Second problem is that this PC was made back when Dell was trying to flip the standard on its head. So you can see right here, our PCI Express slot for our GPU is on the highest slot, right? So when we try to put in the graphics card, you gotta put it in this side up, right? To get it to fit, it only goes halfway in. See? So, in order to put a GPU in here, we are limited to single slot graphics cards. We can only use one slot GPUs, because that's what's going to fit in here. I have one that I think would be perfect. The problem is last time I checked, it was broken. I might be able to fix it, but essentially, we are going to have to find a new GPU for this thing. Not the end of the world. Not the end of the world. The purpose of this video was being able to replace the power supply. That's still the main goal. Graphics card, we can find if we need to. But first things first, I gotta get a power supply into this thing so that we can even have a GPU at all. But I've solved tougher challenges, so don't worry about it. Let's see what we can come up with. When life gives you problems, sometimes you have to engineer your own solutions. Alright, finally got something to work. So if you look back here, you'll notice I had to Dremel out part of the case. Not very pretty, but it got the power supply to fit. So we have a power supply installed in here successfully, and we have a graphics card that's better than what we had, but it's not quite what I wanted. So the problem, probably a little bit easier to illustrate now, is you can see that with the single slot, we can only have a one slot GPU, as in we can only have, see, one PCI Express slot right there. So what you're looking at right here is a GTX 650 Ti, 1 gigabyte card. I've actually used this to play some Battlefield 1 in the past. So it's a capable card. It can get some gaming done. What I originally wanted to use was this. This is the 7900 GTX that I pulled out of that old XPS 630i. I made a couple of videos about that in the past. So I wanted to use this, but I basically cleaned the entire thing in alcohol, scrubbed it from top to bottom. None of the capacitors looked like they were bulging, so I cleaned out all of the power ports and the video ports. I did everything I could. I could not get this thing to display a video, so I don't know what the issue is. I might keep it and just rip the cooler off or something for a future card. I don't know. I might just take that PCI Express bracket for something else in case I need it. But this card is basically just worthless. It's not going to work. So to get it working, I put in that GTX 650, and as you can see, ta-da, we have a video out. We still have to boot up. I don't have a keyboard plugged into it, and we still need to actually put an OS on this thing. I'm going to put Ubuntu on it. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of outside of the topic of this video, but what I really wanted to do was I wanted to use AMD for this particular build because it's going to work with another video that I'm working on making. So I do have an AMD single slot card in the mail. It's coming, so it will come. I will use it for this project, but until then, this is about as far as I can get. So I do have the power supply successfully installed. So we have 750 watts of power for 80 plus gold or platinum, whatever it is, which is great. Really glad I was able to get that in there. And then we're powering all of our hard drives and SSD, so we're good there. The Q6600, if it's posting, should be fine. So yeah, I'm gonna have to get into the BIOS, make sure everything works good. But yeah, this is the first part of the project where we actually got the power supply installed. I can't believe I had to do that kind of a janky workaround. It's so stupid. But you know what? I'm just glad it's done and I don't have to worry about it anymore. So yeah, glad that I got to this point. This is a good spot to kind of leave off on. So that's going to be part 1, and then part 2 we'll be getting Ubuntu installed and going through that process. So stay tuned. Hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you next time.